What's up, people? All right. Today, shut up. Today, we're going to get down to the brass tacks. All these discussions and all these forums on what's the best thing to use for your modeler. We're throwing it all out the window. And I'm going to give you the one answer that's more important than anything else. You really need to understand this. There is one thing that you can do with your modeler. It's going to make it sound amazing, whether it's the Pod Go, the HX Stomp, whatever it is. But before that, we're going to talk about a couple things. I'm doing this live because I don't have time to do uploads today and my internet's been funky. So doing it live gets it to YouTube faster and it's easier. So I'm doing these live. If you have questions, I'll answer questions, of course, as always, the deal. So a couple of my other cameras aren't hooked up. So if we have questions about specific modelers that we need to do things with, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to actually show you on the modeler, but I could, I'll figure something out to show it to you. Anyway, this is the deal. This is the definitive. This is the last video you ever need to see on this. It's the last one ever. This is the only one that matters. Because it's the real one. It's the no bullshit one. Like it says behind me, what's the best solution for you? There's so many ways you can go about hooking up your modeler. There's so many ways you can go about hooking up your Helix, your Pod Go, your HX Stomp, your LT, blah, 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 your rack, whatever it is. You can hook it up to a tube power amp and run it into a real cabinet. You can hook it up to a solid state power amp and hook it up to a real cabinet. You can hook it up to FRFR speakers. You could hook it up to a power cab. You could hook it up to studio monitors. You can hook it up to your computer speakers. You can hook it up to headphones. You can hook it up to all this stuff. But it comes down to this. What's the best solution for you? I see a ton of questions every day. Everybody asking, hey, what's the best solution for me to use my Pod Go? What's my best solution to use my Helix? What's the best solution to use my HX Stomp? The answer is nobody can tell you. We can give you suggestions. I'm not a big fan of the FRFR thing. I don't like the head rushes. I don't think they sound like a real amp in the room. So my opinion is going to be different than everybody else's. You're going to ask this question, you're going to get 900 answers, and none of them are the right one. The only answer that's right for you is for you to hook it up, however you're going to hook it up, and use it. If you don't like it, sell that, buy the next solution. That's the real answer. It sucks. It's just like when you're first starting out. You don't know what guitar you want. You don't know what guitar is going to work for you. You don't know any of that. So you need to start at the beginning and go through the steps. It's the tone chase. It's what matters. It's what we all do. So I'm going to go over a couple solutions, and then based on the descriptions, you can figure out what you want to do. Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about FRFR. Okay, everybody knows I'm not a big fan of FRFR. FRFR to me it doesn't sound right. It sounds like a mic speaker cabinet coming back to you either through studio monitors or coming back to you through a stage wedge. It doesn't feel like you plug it into your amp in a room and playing guitar. Now, for some people, that's fine. Some people, it's okay, and they like that. That's perfectly cool, and it's perfectly fine. For me, it's not a viable solution. I like that amp in the room feel. I like standing in front of my amp on stage with it blaring behind me with my pants blowing around. I like to feel it tingle my butthole. Some people don't. That's okay too. I do. The tingle in a butthole is a real thing. It's got to happen. So if you're into that whole being on stage or listening back on studio monitors and you want to hear that, FRFR is great. You could do, stereo, you use it a left or a right one. You got all your stereo effects and everything coming back to you. It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous thing. You can do that. It's awesome. But remember that if you're the type of person that's used to the amp in the room sound, like you've always played with your amp in the same room at you, not listening back on studio monitors and not used to be hearing it on a stage wedge, it's not going to sound like the amp in the room. It's going to sound like you're listening back on studio monitors, or it's going to sound like it's coming through a stage wedge. Second solution. Line 6 power cab. Now, yes, while Line 6 power cab is an FRFR, it's full range, the whole deal, it has what Line 6 calls their speaker emulation. Their speaker emulation sounds more like a real amp. The cabinet's built more like a real guitar cabinet, and it sounds more like a guitar cab. So if you run Helix, you have full flexibility. You can change what speakers you're using. You could switch to IRs. You could use the real cabinet, the Line 6 cabs that are in the Helix. You could do all of that, and you can control all of that through Command Center and all that good stuff. So if you have a full-blown Helix, Power Cab 212 is an amazing option. Absolutely amazing option. It's incredible. I have a 212 Power Cab that I got from Line 6. They're great. It's awesome. I don't particularly like it with the Pod Go because I think it's too expensive of a solution for somebody who's only spending that kind of money on Pod Go. Pod Go is like, best way to put it, it's like getting into budget Helix. I mean, I'm not that it's bad. I don't mean budget in a bad way, but budget Helix. It's not really a Helix. We all know that. It's not designed to be a Helix. It's a pod, but it's got all the Helix modeling, which is awesome. It's great. But I don't feel like spending the money on a power cab is a good solution because, number one, you don't have the control. And number two, if you're going to spend $450 on a Pod Go and then go and spend $700 on a speaker cabinet, it's kind of back-assward if you ask me. So that's where I sit on that. But for Helix users, I think the power cab's an amazing thing. Sorry, I'm just making the chat a little bigger so I can see everything that's going on. Also, keep in mind, if you're on Facebook and you're watching this and you're typing comments, I can't see who's commenting. I need you guys to type your name in because it shows up for some reason as just Facebook user. In fact, you know what? I'll just show you. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do this. It just comes up like this. It's stupid. I don't know why it does this, but it does. See, I don't know who the hell you are. I don't know. Pod Go, the Helix for poor people like me. I mean, okay, if that's the way you want to put it. I own Helix. I own HX Stomp. I own Pod Go. I also own Native. And I use each one for different applications. It really depends on stage size. I think for me, the Pod Go is a little more flexible tone-wise, designing tones, than the HX Stomp, in my opinion, because you have the set blocks, you have the expression pedal. So if you need something really quick and on the go, and you don't want to, you don't want to carry an extra expression pedal and blah, 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 you plug right in the Go and take it with you, and you're there. You're done. That's why they call it a Pod Go. You just take it, you go. Just go. Go. So let's get into the third way people can hook things up in a live situation again. So your modeler into a solid state power amp into an actual cabinet, 212, 412, 112, whatever it is, doesn't make a difference. For me, this is my favorite compact and go solution. Things like the Seymour Duncan Power Stage or the Quilter or Joyo makes one too. It's called I can't remember what it's called. It's like 75 watts. It's like this big. No, it's made by Hotone. Sorry. It's like this big. They make one too. Moore makes the Baby Bomb. These I think, are cool, cheap solutions to get really good tones straight away. Because you're used to using a real speaker, you're used to using a real cabinet, you're used to using a real amp. Just turn your cabs and all that off inside whatever modeler you're using, and this is going to give you that amp in the room thing. Also, for live situations, it makes it easier for a sound guy because he's just doing what he normally does, and he hooks up a microphone to your cabinet and you're done. You know, it's the one detriment to modelers that I talk to people about all the time. It's, how many of you guys carry 15 amps on stage? How many of you carry 3? You don't. You carry 1. You take 1 amp with you, maybe 2. Maybe you have one for clean and dirty. You know, you have like a Dr. Z and a Deluxe you take with you. You know, and then you got all your overdrives and everything else on the pedal board in front of you. The other thing you need to take into consideration with stuff like that is the sound guy. I mean, if you're using vastly different amplifiers that have drastically different EQ curves, him trying to get a mix front of house is going to be a nightmare. One way to help combat that is to use a single IR for everything. Either a single IR or a single real cabinet or a single built-in cabinet. That's definitely the way to go about doing it. It gives everything kind of the same EQ curve and keeps things from popping out and poking out in the mix. It's something as a professional musician you should really think about. I mean, if you have your own sound guy and he knows where the changes are and blah, 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 what he's got to do, that's one thing. But if you're going and you're playing like the local clubs or the local bars or you're doing the festival circuit, try to keep the EQ changing and all that crap to a bare minimum because it's just going to drive the front of house guy nuts. Next option is tube power amp into a cab. Basically the same as what we were just talking about. Works the same way. You know, in my opinion, okay, yeah, could sound a little better depending. And the final option is to run into the effects return of an actual tube amp, which is what probably most of us that play the festival circuit are going to do. Unless you're running direct front of house completely with your own in-ear system and the whole deal. But the one thing to always keep in mind is to try to keep those EQ curves the same. Try to keep the tones kind of in the same general realm. You don't want to be the guy that's going from, you know, something like there was a good example. That's an AC30 to a 5150. Oh, shut up. You don't want to go from an AC30 to a 5150. It's just too drastic of a tone change. And things are just crazy, you know. Thomas Moore is asking, I have a Vox AC10 with no effects return. If I hook up amp out to the input, do I shut off cabinets and use the preamp? If I use the preamp, I see lots of choices. Is that what I want? Just pick a preamp. So, it's really up to you. I tend to just use the full amp models without the cabinets. I don't use just the preamps. They just, I don't know, just it sounds better to me having the power amp baked in. Try both, see what you like better. That's the best, that's the right answer. Unfortunately, without an effects return, no matter what you do, your preamp in your AC10 is going to color the sound of the amp models in the Podgo. So it's still kind of in a roundabout sort of way, still going to sound kind of like your AC10. The EQ curves will be a little bit different, but it just, you know, if you set your amp controls flat, the preamp has a tone baked in. It's the way amps are built. Okay. So the preamp is where most of your tone comes from. The power section is just amplifying that signal. So you have what's called a tone stack, and that tone stack is built a specific way. Your bass control, your mid control, and your treble control are set at specific frequencies inside that amp. Now the problem is those frequencies might not be what you need to tweak in order to get the tone to sound the best it can out of the front of your amp. This is why we tell people to run into effects returns. With the effects return, the only thing that's really affecting the tone of is whatever that power section sounds like. So you're running a preamp into a power section that really doesn't have its own EQ or its own tone. So it just winds up being cleaner. I mean, don't get me wrong. You're playing an AC-10, so I'm assuming you're not playing extreme metal. It's another thing you really need to consider that I see people suggesting all the time. People suggest all the time stuff that doesn't necessarily work for the type of music that the person that's asking the question is asking. I'm assuming with something like an AC-10, you're not trying to play gent. I'm assuming. I could be making an ass of myself, but I'm assuming. Most guys who play in gent aren't playing on AC-10. I assume you're playing some kind of blues or rock or worship music, something like that. So the other thing you can consider with your AC-10, which would work great, is to just use the preamps like you would use like an overdrive pedal. You know, set up kind of a cleanish tone on the AC-10, and then use like boosts and overdrives, or even some of the low wattage amp preamps, or the low gain preamps, something like a Deluxe, Grammatico, even some of the other AC stuff. You know, you could try doing that too. That could probably work in your situation too. You know, I did a video a couple weeks ago called, I have a series that I'm putting together called Amps and Attitudes. I haven't done one in a while because I got some stuff going on. I'm trying to get that sorted before I do it again. Okay, so John Forwell says, I play at my church where we have Kempers backstage. All of us use the same ones, so they are set just clean, and we bring our own boards. I have a Podgo to use now. Got to figure out how to use it. With the amps off? Depends on how they have the Kemper set up. I mean, if the Kemper's set up and it has its own amp already, then yes. If it's set on something like a Deluxe or a JC120 or something like that, then yes. I would turn the amps off and I wouldn't use them. I would get into, with the Podgo, I would get into learning stacking overdrives. You know, kind of like you would normally do on what they consider a worship. I hate that word. I hate it because I get it. You guys have your own worship band thing and blah, blah, blah. I just hate that word. It seems, I don't know. I don't want to say derogatory. That's not the word I'm looking for. But in reality, it's a worship board is really no different than, you know, like a rock board or possibly a jazz board, depending on what you guys are doing for worship music. It's no different. So stop it. Stop with your, we're going to be different and elitist. We're going to be worshipers. Stop it. Cut it out. But you can use the Podgo to stack overdrives. You know, you can definitely do that. But again, same thing as I was telling John. Not John. Who was that? Thomas. Same thing I was telling Thomas is you could try a couple of the preamps. Maybe try the preamps and see what they sound like through the Kemper. Just the best thing to do, and here's the overall answer for what we're talking about today, is use your ear. If you like the way it sounds, it's not wrong. There is no one way to do anything. There are a bunch of different ways to do everything, and there are a bunch of different ways that you can get good tones out of modelers. You know? But there's really no Yeah, the board is a board. I agree. Playing worship is definitely different when I play secular music. Totally different intent. So it's different. But yeah, the gear is the same. Yeah, exactly. You know, and they get into this whole, well, it's a worship board. You know, right, exactly, John. I agree with that. If anything, a worship board would be just a more simple board, probably with a few fancy overdrives and delays. They don't even have to be fancy overdrives and delays. You could use an EP booster with a tube screamer and a carbon copy, a DD3. I mean, that's pretty much what you're going to need. Maybe throw a chorus on there, you know? I mean, I don't see maybe some rotary. Maybe, possibly. You know, it depends on what you're going for. But the point being is, just use your ears. If you don't trust your own ears, then you just need to sit down and you need to tweak more till you start to learn to trust them. It's very important. You know, this is music. It's an audible medium, and I give recording tutorials too. And I tell all of my students from my recording tutorials the same thing. Use your ears. Don't use your eyes. This isn't a visual medium. Okay? Pull up an amp on your modeler. Okay? Pull up a cabinet. Okay? I want to do a deluxe with Alnico Blues. Okay? Pull up a deluxe, pull up your Alnico Blues. Sorry, I got a tickle in my throat and I don't have anything to drink. Then just go in, look at where the knob is. Okay, here's my bass knob. Here's my treble. Here's my middle knob. Okay, I know where they are. Close your eyes, play some notes on the guitar, and just turn them. Don't worry about what if the bass is set to 10 or 7 or 9 or 3 or 2 or 1. It doesn't matter. Dial it to where it sounds good to you. If it sounds good to you, you're good to go. That's it. You don't need to use presets and then tweak presets, blah, 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 blah. Learn how to use your modeler to its full potential. You know, just the ear thing is so important. A lot of people can't hear the difference. You know, I got another question that just came in. Hi, Jason. I have to connect my Podgo with a no-name amp. Should I use the amp out or main left? Thanks. So how are you connecting to the no-name amp? That's the question. I mean, it really doesn't make a difference, okay? With Podgo, this is the way I tell everybody to set it up. Always use your left main out. The only reason to ever use your amp out is if you're going to be running to a power amp, effects return, or an amplifier for volume on stage, and then sending a signal to front of house. A direct signal to front of house. That's the only time I think you should ever use amp out. The left main out is perfectly sufficient. There's a couple things with Podgo you got to realize that wind up happening. You wind up with if you set the amp out to pre-cabinet, you lose volume control. You know, there's a bunch of different stuff that happens. But, so, Christoph, hope that answers your question. But as far as getting back to using your modeler, just turn knobs, man. When you buy a brand new amplifier, okay? Say you just went out and you bought yourself one of the new SLO 100s. Okay? Do you go online, you ask people for presets? No. You plug your guitar into the front of the amp, you turn the knobs till you think it sounds good, and you're done. Do the same thing with your modeler. Yes, there are 900 different options. But pick one, play with that one, learn how to use it. Then move on to the next one. Play with that one. The other thing you can do is if you're looking for a specific sound, say, I had a guy ask me the other day, he wanted the clean sound, he wanted the clean sound from Pisces by Ginger. Okay? Now, I could tell that clean sound wasn't actually recorded through an amp. It was actually recorded as a DI. And then they just added effects to it. So, what I told him to do is grab the cleanest amp that's in the Pod Go or the Helix or blah, 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 whatever it is. Grab a JC120. JC120, roll the bass off slightly, give it a little bit of a mid hump, and then give it some sparkle on top. And you can get really close, you know. Thomas Moore is asking, how do you delete presets or downloads you don't like? Overwrite them with a blank preset. It's like that in every unit from line 6. Just overwrite it with another preset, a blank preset. So what I always do is I always save one of those ones called new preset. What I exported one of those and I keep it on my desktop. Then I just copy it over using HXEdit or PodGo Edit in order to delete the one I don't like. The other thing you can do is inside the unit itself, you can have one of those presets and then just copy it to the preset number or patch number that you want to delete. And that works too. That's how you do it. There is no delete option, unfortunately. But if you want one, go to IdeaScale, sign up for an account, and let Line 6 know you want a delete feature. So, what have we learned from all of this? What we learned from all of this is take everything you hear on the internet with a grain of salt. If you play extreme metal, something like an FRFR probably isn't going to cut it. Probably running into a power amp and then into a 412 is going to be a great way to go for you. If you play medium to low gain stuff, FRFRs sound good. You like that sparkly top end, that high definition studio sound. FRFRs will work great for you. But in my opinion, and this is not a paid endorsement, although no, that's kind of a lie. It's kind of a paid endorsement, I guess. I mean, Line 6 sent me a power... So for those of you that don't know, Line 6 sent me a power cab to check out. Okay? And when I went to send it back, they just said, the hell with it, just keep it. So I wound up getting a power cab for Line 6, but it all comes out in the wash. It all comes out in the wash. So it's kind of a paid endorsement. I'm, like I said, if you're a Helix guy or an HX Stomp guy, power cab is amazing. If you're a Pod Go guy, I don't really think it's a good choice. I think finding a solid state power amp like the Seymour Duncan Power Stage or one of the more Baby Bomb or something like that into a 212 cabinet is a great way to go. If you're on a budget, I highly recommend the Harley Benton Vintage 212s from Tumman. They're a 212 cabinet that comes with V30s and they go for like $250 US. Can't beat that. The speakers alone are worth that. Granted, yes, they're Chinese V30s. They're not the UK V30s, but they're still V30s. They sound good. They sound great. It's a great sounding cabinet. It's built very well. And then you can find yourself just a cheap power amp. Or if you already have an amplifier that has an effects loop, just take your modeler and plug it into that and use whatever speaker you already have. You know, there is no best option. The best option is what's best for you. So when you go into these threads and you're answering questions for these people who are asking what's the best option, don't just give a single answer. Oh, just buy a head rush. You'll love the head rush. Blah, 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 blah. Unless that person has specifically told you exactly what they need, don't just recommend a head rush. Don't just recommend a power amp in a real cab. Don't just recommend that they plug into what they already have. Ask questions. It's like I go on, like I'm a member of the Seymour Duncan group. There's people coming in there all day. Well, what's the best pickup for black metal? Okay, good black metal pickup is a Black Winter. Is it going to sound good in your guitar? I don't know. Because you didn't tell me what kind of guitar you have. You didn't tell me what the body's made out of. You didn't tell me if it's got a Floyd Rose or it doesn't, or it's a string through body, ebony fingerboard, maple fingerboard. But give me some information. So I ask people for additional information every time, no matter what it is. Well, what kind of music do you play? Okay, what kind of tones do you like? Are you looking for Ginger? Are you looking for Arch Enemy? Are you looking for Anthrax? Are you looking for Metallica? Are you looking for Pantera? Are you looking for George Strait? Are you looking for I just totally freaking blanked on the Nationwide dude. Brad Paisley? You know, we need details. We need information. We need to full on know what you need out of your tone. Don't come in and just go, hey, I want a good worship overdrive sound. Yes, all of them. Well, it's good that you bought a modeler because now you can get all of them, isn't it? But be specific. You know, you give us the relevant information we need to make an informed decision in order to give you a great suggestion. Don't just say, hey, what's the best FRFR? Because there is no the best FRFR. I hate the head rushes. I can't stand them. I've tried every one. They sound brittle. They just sound ugly. They don't sound good to me. Other people swear by them. But if they want bad tone, no, I'm only kidding. I'm not a fan. You know, for me, the FRFR, the Friedman cabs sound really good. The Mission sounds really good. But again, you're getting into that big, big money. I haven't played the Laney yet, so I can't say whether or not the Laney is good. I have to try it. I have to get my hands on one and give it a shot, see how that one is. But I've played the other ones. You know, I've played the Friedman just recently. I played a Mission Engineering just recently. I own a power cab, and I've used the head rushes and the altos, and I just don't. The Friedmans are expensive, man. You want to know what drives me crazy? Here's what drives me crazy. BE 100. Got a BE 100. Right after I got my BE 100, I bought the HX Stomp. I did a 101 shootout. The real BE 100 versus the one in the HX Stomp. The HX Stomp is within like 2% of the real one. I'm so mad, dude. So mad. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's like I did in that video a couple weeks ago. You know, modelers lack the feel and dynamics of a tube amp. You guys should go watch that video because it's actually really funny. It's a really funny video. I do a lot of these crazy rants and stuff like this on my channel here because it's just the internet in general has, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. The internet is crazy. Yes. But, you know, that pretty much gives you guys the ideas. So we're 30 minutes into this. I hope you guys learned something today. Anybody else have any other questions before we jump out of here? It's just to let you go, just last chance. I know I just did 2 live streams 2 days in a row. It's crazy. But like I said, I've been crazy busy and I needed to get some content up. So doing these live videos and talking about stuff live, and my upload speed at my house has been funky. So doing it live just makes it easier for right now. So if you got any questions, now's your chance. If not, I'm going to go home. No problem, Christoph. Thank you for tuning in and checking this stuff out. You know, I just want to get the info out there. There's so much bad info out there on the internet. So much. Yes, I do use OBS. I use OBS to do all of this. It makes it really quick and really easy. Because I can do cool camera transitions. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, wait, that camera's not hooked up. Neither's that one. Oh, my God. Neither's that one. Oh, my God. Oh. But, yeah, I use OBS to do all this stuff. It's cool. Anyway, I'm going to cut out. Hope you guys learned something. Whatever you want to use is okay. Don't let anybody tell you you're wrong. It's okay. I promise. Look, I'll pet you. I'll pet you. It's okay. It's okay. You're okay. I promise. Anyway, I will catch you guys later on. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Facebook. Oh, one last thing. 75% off all of my RIR packs on my website right now. JasonConstantine.com. 75% off. Use the code NONEMOREBLACK. Yes, Spinal Tap reference because Nigel Tufnell's the best guitarist to ever live. Capital N, capital M, capital B, None More Black, 75% off. That makes my Mega IR pack with more than 100 impulse responses only $25. Normally it's $100. I have IR packs that go for as little as $5. I have ones that go for $100. They're all 75% off right now. Here's another little secret. All of my premium presets that I have on my website as well, 75% off. Use the same code. Check out None More Black. You can check out all my stuff on Custom Tone. I have tons of free tones up there. Just search for Jason Constantine with no space. Just Jason Constantine. Do a search. All my presets will come up. There's tons of free ones up there. We have our Podgo users group on Facebook, which if you join, you get my Jason Constantine IR pack for free, which is 21 custom IRs designed by me in my studio, which includes the one for Jeff Duncan Drummer Saint, my own personal Constantine cab, and it's got a killer vintage 71 Marshall. That's just the tits. It's one of my favorite IRs I've ever created. It covers everything from low gain stuff all the way up to high gain. That one pack. So it's free. Check out our group on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/Podgo users. Even if you're a Helix user, whatever, jump in, grab the free R pack, then you can leave. We have a Discord. All the links are in my other videos. This one's live. I haven't had a chance to put anything in the description yet. It'll be up later. But anyway, I got to get the hell out of here. I'm going to go eat some breakfast. I'm going to do my morning, triple S. And I will talk to you guys later on. Thanks for stopping by.